We really love our cars. Thinking back to high school, what was the big thing? The big thing was getting a car. You turn 15, take driver's ed, and you really wanted a car, of your own. You got to drive dad's car, I guess, but you always wanted your own car. But if you think about it, how much more financially set would you be if you never owned a car? Besides the insurance and the taxes and, renewals on and payments and all that, cars are expensive. You look at, I have notes. I'm looking at my notes here. Just oil changes, $80 a pop. If you do the stuff yourself, the oil and the filter will cost you about $80. And I think if you take it into a shop, what are they going to charge? I've never had oil change in the shop, so I don't know. I always do my own. I'm guessing you're looking at 100 and a half, maybe 100. I don't know. It just seems like, these things just nickel dime you to death. And as you know, I have been driving electric cars for 3 years now. That's all we have now is electric cars. We don't have any gas cars. I have my gas motorcycle, which I just changed oil in that. And the filter was $14 and the oil was $34. So that's right up there too. That's about $50, the way I figure. And, got to do that every 5,000. If you don't do it every 5,000, you're going to have trouble. That's just the way it is. But there's a lot of issues with cars now. You think we've been building cars for about 100 years. And you think as you build them, they get better and better and better. And in some ways they do. They add more features, they add more doodads. And, we went from crank windows to electric and AC and torque converters and automatic transmissions. And, there's been upgrades along the way. But there's also been that desire to make things less reliable. It's almost like the plan is to just get you past the warranty period and then have the wheels fall off. Do you ever get that feeling? The money I spent changing oil in my motorcycle just recently, last week actually, is more money than I spent in 3 years on 3 different EVs for maintenance. Electric cars are really cheap to run. They're cheap to maintain because there is no maintenance really. Tires, that's really about it, and windshield washer fluid. And, car wash, that kind of thing. And I've never said that I was into electric cars because I'm trying to save Mother Earth. I honestly don't think it can be done. I don't think we're ever going to really get out of this climate change thing alive. My main focus is I don't have to do the maintenance anymore. And I don't have to spend all the money that you normally spend on gas cars. So I put together kind of a list here of things that I think are just really dumb that car manufacturers are doing. And things that people just hate. What's the new thing now with cars? Auto stop. You pull up to a stop sign, the engine kills. Remember in the old days when that happened, you kind of panicked because you thought, uh-oh, is it going to start again? Because they usually didn't stop unless you turned the key off. This stupid thing, every time you stop the car at a stop sign or anything, the motor dies. So then you step on the gas and the engine starts up again, and then you go a little bit and the engine dies. Well, that's just a wonderful thing, isn't it? Let's burn out that starter motor. Now, starter motors used to be $30, $40. I think now they're $300, $400. So they've gotten really expensive. So you're putting more wear and tear on those things. Plus, it's not good for the engine to keep starting and stopping, starting and stopping. That's why hybrid engines don't last long, because they're constantly starting and stopping, which causes a lot of mechanical problems like sludge buildup. And you can disable it, and you can actually get some hacks that you do to the computer to permanently disable it. Otherwise, you have to disable it every single time you get in the car, which I guess would become routine, but you really should, because it's a stupid thing. And look at this too. It's 100 degrees out. And you pull to a stoplight, the engine kills, and you have no air conditioning. Or in the winter, you have no heat. I mean, how dumb is this thing? So that's number one on the list, not number one in severity, though. And then you got valves and VVT. You look at the General Motors with their, well, it used to be displacement on demand. Then they changed it to, which is fuel management system. There was something else they called it, and I can't remember what that was. But it basically deactivates cylinders by a little trickery on the valve lifters. And they jam up. And if you don't catch it in time, if you don't fix it in time, it trashes the motor. And so you're looking at, well, anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000, depending on how old and new the thing is. So that's not good. And that's not only Chevy. Chevy's is the worst. But Dodge has that, and I believe Nissan, maybe, is one of the other companies. So they're not alone. There's other companies doing it, but General Motors definitely has the most problem. In fact, I think there's a class action suit against them right now. And VVT, which is variable valve timing, which really helps with the efficiency and more power, that kind of thing. It's a good thing in that respect, but they're really problematic. On most of the cars, if you're going to have premature failure, it'll be the VVT that goes bad. And a lot of this revolves around oil. Boy, if you don't change oil every 5,000, you might as well kiss the motor goodbye. These extended oil change periods, it doesn't work. There's a guy on YouTube, I Do Cars, the guy's name is Eric. Every week he tears down an engine. He runs a salvage yard. Every week he tears down a different engine. And I'd say 99% of them are all sludged up and suffered from oil starvation or bearing failure, through rods through the block, all kinds of crap. He just did one where Ford engines, some of them, the V6s, they put the water pump in the engine block and they run it off the timing chain, which seems like a wonderful idea, doesn't it? The water pump goes bad and you got to tear the front of the engine off in order to change it. And then you have to retime the valves and all that because it throws everything out of time when you do that. And here again, if it leaks, guess where the fluid goes? It goes in the oil pan. And what floats on top of antifreeze? The oil. And where's the pickup tube? It's at the bottom of the oil pan. See where I'm going with this? Trashes the motor. So say goodbye engine. New engine goes in with the same setup and the eventual same failure. Timing chains. Cost of a timing chain can be as much as $3,000 because of the difficulty getting to the timing chain, and they normally have to be replaced at 10,000 miles. And the belts are even worse. Probably about the same price, but they don't last as long as the chains. The chains suffer from stretch. The belts will actually lose teeth and run out of time. And if it's a zero clearance engine, goodbye motor. And then you got belt drive oil pumps in the oil pan running off a belt. Clever idea, Ford. Way to go on that one. Yep. And now General Motors, they're recalling, I don't know how many thousand. I should really check. I thought it was 8,100 6.2 engines because the crankshafts are bad. And they trash out the motors. And here again, a new motor. It's a $12,000 motor. But they're covered under warranty for now. So that's not too bad. But you know, they put in a new motor. Is it going to have the defective crank so that it goes outside of the warranty period? And now you're looking at the next motors coming out of your pocket. And then you got catalytic converters, or Catholic converters, if you're religious. They get stolen all the time. and they collapse. And when they collapse, they plug the entire exhaust. And I had that happen, and I ended up with a new motor. Then you got DEF, which is diesel exhaust fluid, which is basically cow urine that you run through the diesels, and it gets rid of some of the hydrocarbons and that kind of thing. Well, those things plug up, and they cost thousands to replace. So that's fun. And then you got, and then you just got regular stuff. You got exhaust gases coming out. If you're going to do anything in your car, what's the first thing you got to do if it's parked inside? Open the garage door, you're going to die. Idle time waste. When a car's idling, look all the fuel it wastes. And if you're in a delivery business or maybe police department, I've mentioned this before, where you spend a lot of time parked on the side of the road idling, just think of the waste just to run air conditioning and heat. And then you got other related problems, overheating, water pumps. Some require engine tear down like I just talked about. Transmission failures. They're on the rise. And transmissions are not cheap. Now they got the 10-speed transmissions. You're looking at $6,000 to $8,000 for a transmission. And the average life is 125,000 miles. That's average. If you've got a hybrid, average life on that motor is 85,000 miles. Hybrids are not good. Average cost of brakes, $350. I Googled it. Yeah, I do my own. So I would never run into that. EVs don't require brakes done near as much. Maybe 1/5, because they use engine braking. I could go on for a week here talking about all the expenses of gasoline engines. And I probably could do a whole video just on the numerous failures and misdesigns and stuff. And you really, like I say, you get to the point where you think, do they patch them up so that you get past warranty and then you end up paying out of pocket? Because, part of the business plan, if you're in the manufacturing business, is you want that repeat revenue, which comes from selling OEM parts, which comes from, all the repair work that happens. Dealers make a lot of money repairing all this stuff. And you'd think you could, after 100 years, you could build cars that would last 500,000 miles and require little or no maintenance. Talking about that, let's jump to the next kind of car. How about EV? What do EVs run into? Well, they run into no oil changes, no transmissions, no overheating, no exhaust. You can work on your car all day with the garage door closed and the heater running and be comfortable. Of course, you don't have to work on your car, but say you wanted to wash your car and you wanted it running for some reason, you could do that. You don't have timing chains or belts, VVT, crankshafts. You can idle all day long with the air conditioning running, and it'll barely use any juice, and you're going to be cool. Or the heater. Either way, doesn't make any difference. Average, I think you could sit parked for at least 2 days, maybe 3, with air conditioning running, heater running. Why not? You don't have the problem with sludge. Sludge is a big deal on gas cars. You'd think that was something of the past. Now with synthetic oils, you'd think it'd be better. It's actually worse. And then you've got direct gas injection. So now you've got carbon buildup on the intake valves. And eventually you have to have them go in there and blast all that crap off the valves so the engine can breathe again. Versus you got 6 moving parts on the average EV drivetrain. So I'm talking engine and reduction gear. You got 6 moving parts. Average car, let's try 2,000. 2,000 plus moving parts. What's more likely to break? 6 moving parts or something with 2,000 moving parts? You do the math on that one. So brake maintenance, well over 150,000 miles, probably 200,000 miles, because you don't use the brakes, especially in town. you use regen. I barely ever touch the brake pedal. You know, downsides, there are downsides to everything. You know, you have to learn how to drive an EV. You have to plan. Like we're going on a trip up north, going to stay in a cabin, and I get in Better Route Planner, and it tells me I got to do one stop for 15 minutes. I said, you know, that's great. We're going to drive past the cities. We're going to park at this charger, plug in, go in the restaurant, eat dinner. We're supposed to charge for 14 minutes. We're probably going to be there a half hour. So we'll get fully charged up, get up to the cabin. When I'm at the cabin, I've got my level 1 charger. I'm going to plug in there, and we'll have a full charge to get home. It's going to cost me about $3 to get up there and another $3 come back. And that's about a 370-mile round trip. $6. Think of that. They do have battery failures. About every 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, the battery will fail. Not the big battery, not the propulsion battery, the little 12-volt lead acid battery that it has under the hood. It looks like a garden tractor battery. All it's for is when you hit the start button, it energizes the computer and turns the lights on because everything runs on 12 volts. And it activates the main contactors to get the propulsion battery on the circuit so that you can drive. So that's the biggest failure. The main batteries don't fail. I know there's been a lot of, like I tell people, if you want to know everything there is to know about electric cars, ask someone who's never had one or ever driven one, because they seem to know everything about them. The main batteries don't go bad. If they do, they're under warranty. I've got 2 used EVs out here. They're under warranty, and they will be for another 5 years. I'm not one bit worried about batteries. In fact, I checked after 40,000 miles, batteries are 100%. 100%. No degradation whatsoever. They talk about weight. Weight's not a big deal. Not at all. I run standard tires. I don't get special tires. I would just run radials. Why would I run special tires? Yeah, windshield washer fluid. That's huge. That's the biggest thing. I run into windshield washer fluid. I think I went through, at least 2 gallons last year. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. That's it. The list for EVs is pretty short. It's in extra big print. It's 1 page. For the gas cars, 3 pages. 3 pages. And I didn't cover everything. I just kind of rambled through some of the highlights. But it's something to think about. And I tell you, if you really want to stick with ICE cars, well, you really want to do research. You want to really investigate the model, especially the engine and transmissions and what they're using and the upsides and downsides, because it's like every manufacturer has like a really good motor. Like Chevy used to have, like the 327 was like the best motor they ever made. And then you've got other motors that are absolute junk. And they're not all, and very few of the motors are actually built here. I mean, what is? General Motors and Ford and all that, they get parts from all over the planet. So, you really have to kind of study, where they're getting what, I guess. Turns out the Chevrolet thing, they kind of trace the crankshaft issue to one factory in Mexico, I think, that was building the cranks. And there's some thing there. I don't know what exactly is wrong, and I'm not going to speculate or badmouth them or anything. I just know that they trace there's an issue and they're working on it. So I would do some research. If I was buying an electric car, I guess I would stay away from Tesla for a lot of reasons. They're getting some heat on the Cybertruck, not only because it's just an ugly, worthless thing, because it really is. I mean, I'm not talking political here. I'm just talking about the vehicle really is kind of a stupid thing. It's a SUV, stupid, useless vehicle. That's what I would say it is. The body panels are falling off, and they're actually structural components, so it makes it really kind of bad. From what I could tell, they glue the parts on, which is fine. I know they're getting some heat on that, but I use a lot of the 3M 8115 adhesives. It's great. I glued sheet metal together, and I actually tore the sheet metal because it couldn't tear the glue joint apart. So the stuff really is good. And I believe they use a 3M product that's especially engineered. And I don't think the glue is an issue. What I see is water can get past your body panels because they didn't seal any of the joints. So water infiltrates. And if you live up north where it freezes, you can move a mountain with water if you freeze it. There is tremendous amounts of power in water that's freezing. Well, you stick that between a body panel and a frame member, it's going to tear that thing apart. I'm thinking that's maybe part of the problem. It's just a poorly built truck thing. I don't know if I even call it a truck. I don't know what it is. But now I'm seeing there are other issues, with their cars and that kind of stuff. Steering wheels delaminating and all kinds of weird stuff. But I don't know. I've got a Chevy Bolt. I have absolutely no complaints. I have not had one issue with it. I got a Kia Niro. Same thing. Not one problem. I'd say the biggest issue I have with both of them is they want you to subscribe to their management thing. You get the app on the phone. With the Chevy, I can do remote start and everything. That's all I need. And it works just great. I don't get any other stuff because I don't pay the $30 a month. That's fine. I don't need it. All I need is the one thing. It tells me how charged the battery is, and if it's charging, how far along it is, and I can remote start. Those are the only things I need. Now on the Kia, when the trial ran out on that, remote start no longer works. And you can't remote start with the fob. So bad for you, Kia. That's a real bad thing. You could at least have a fob that has remote start. So other than that, though, that's my biggest complaint. So yeah, stuff worth looking into. Use caution when you're buying new cars, because new cars are not all real good. You want to make sure that you don't get stiffed. So just some advice for you. Thanks for watching, everybody.